Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. It is August 20th, Thursday, of course, and we are back virtual because Dallas is red, as you see behind me. They have changed the wording from stay safe, stay home, but it's still high risk of infection if you go out. So as a result, we're back on Zoom. We've got all the role assignments and everybody's got their goals. We have Rob as a co-host. If anything happens to me, Rob should be able to take over for me while we're here. I don't know, let's see. Ooh, Wes, we do have somebody who may not have been here for a lot of this before. Wes has maybe been here a little bit, but not as much. Needless to say, you've got probably, if you're on a PC or Mac, you've got little bitty pictures of everybody, little icons of everybody. You will see in those boxes, there's a mute. Well, I have a mute because I can shut you off, but you probably don't. But you do see a dot, 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 and under the dot, 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 you will notice that you have a way of pinning someone to the main window so that if you are doing a speech or speaking, you can pin your timer to make sure that your timer remains visible to you. That's going to be one of the things that you will see. Let's see, there's also a mute button, of course, down in the lower left. Please keep yourself muted if there's anything that's going to be distracting going on in the background. And if I have to, I will mute you if I hear and detect too much noise. I think that probably covers the main things that I really want to do here. Oh, they also do have the view button up in the upper right-hand corner. You can select either the speaker view, which means it changes with whoever is speaking, as long as they're speaking for long enough time for Zoom to recognize it, or you can put it in gallery view. The gallery view will show you a little bit of everybody. Sometimes that is helpful just to see everyone here and see everyone's reaction. And it may be enough to be able to pin your timer as well, another way to pin your timer. Let's talk a little bit about our agenda. Our agenda for this evening is here. First of all, if you go to Dallas Social Toastmasters, DallasSocialToastmasters.com is our website. It's divided into 3 columns. The third column is intended for members, and that's most of what we have here tonight. Current agenda is the first button, the first link on the right-hand side of that. Current agenda will bring you to this, which has been uploaded. You can use this to follow along with everything that's going to happen tonight. There are going to be some changes to the agenda that are last minute because we've had some people who are either slightly late tonight because they have to work, or that they did not confirm and we don't know if they're going to make it for sure or not. So we will have some changes to this, but it's at least a start, and you can follow along with who's going to be speaking, etc. I think that covers that. With regard to the next thing, it's going to be invocation and pledge. Dagan Newland, please go ahead with your invocation and pledge, Dagan.
Okay. Now I didn't think about this, but I could have put an American flag back in the background, but I don't have that ready. But I guess we can go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, you have a flag there, Rob, with you? There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands. Oh, everybody's on mute.
One nation,
Under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Yeah, if we're not on mute, it's going to pick one of us. Whoever's loudest is going to be the one doing it.
I should hear everybody speaking then if when everybody's not on mute, right?
No, it's going to pick one. I think it still picks just one speaker, mutes everybody else. We'll see. But I think it'll mute everybody but one.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get into my theme tonight. So I picked the Lie to Me. As most of y'all know, my prior background in security and things like that and loss prevention. You know, I dealt with people, you know, interviewing people for theft and things like that, and had to detect lies. So I'm going to go over some signs of deception and, you know, how to maybe detect if somebody's lying or not. But before we get into that, I'm going to go over some changes on the agenda. Then we'll get into the duty holder. So one of the changes, since Justin said he is working late because of some overtime from his work, the timer will now be Karen Lee. No, sorry, Rob. Who did I say? I just messed this up. I wrote the wrong person down here. Let's see.
I think that
Oh,
was you. You were- yeah.
yes. I don't know why I wrote down Karen. Sorry, y'all. So timer's going to be me. Vote counter, it will now be Karen Lee.
Wow.
And we're only going to have one speaker tonight, and that's going to be John Vessels, and his evaluator is going to be Lee King instead of Rob. So those are the changes. So now let's go over the duty holders. So the first duty holder is obviously me, and I will go over the timer. So during the different sections of the meeting, I'll be timing the prepared speeches, the table topics, and the evaluator. So when it comes to my timing portion, I will switch to a gray screen. And when I hit the minimum time, for example, the speech is 5 to 7 minutes, I will hit the green at 5, yellow at 6, red at 7, and have 30 seconds to wrap up. And on the table topics, you'll have 1 to 2 minutes, but you must hit 1 minute. And you'll get the green at 1, 1.5 yellow, 2 at red, then you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up. And of course, the evaluators get 2 to 3 minutes with the 30-second leeway on either side, and 2 minutes to get green, 2.5 yellow, and red you get 3 minutes, and of course you have 30 seconds to wrap up. And I will give my report on the timing when called upon by the different various people. So we'll move on now to our grammarian, which is going to be Mark Schroeder. So Mark Schroeder can give us your report, your duty review on grammarian.
Thank you so much. As grammarian, I'm going to be looking for both good and bad uses of the English language. So I'll be listening very carefully for anything that I hear that doesn't sound like good English. But I'm also going to be looking for particularly descriptive, or what's the word I'm looking for? Descriptive is a good one, but anything that I think really stands out and paints a really good picture. I also have the duty of coming up with the word of the day. And for today, the word of the day is going to be abject. It means to sink to or existing in a low state of condition, very bad or severe, cast down in spirits, servile, spiritless. Typically, one of the phrases that you will hear is abject poverty, but in many other cases, it just basically means a hopeless situation that you may have found yourself resigned to. Our table topics respondents are required to use the word of the day abject, which you'll notice it is an adjective. So that means it modifies a noun. And you have to use that word in order to be eligible for one of the ribbons tonight. We encourage everyone during the meeting to use the word abject in any way that you can. That concludes my duty as a grammarian tonight. Do you want for me to go ahead and do my other duty as well?
Yes, as all counter as well, please.
Okay, might as well while I'm up. As our counter, what I'm going to be doing is listening for verbal crutches. So perhaps you might use the words occasionally people will repeat a word at the beginning of a sentence, but it indicates that you're trying to look for a word, you're searching for a word. And if I happen to notice that you have any verbal crutches, things that take away from your meaning, by doing that, I will make notes of those. We would normally make noise to call your attention to those quickly during everything but the prepared speeches. It's a little more difficult to do that during Zoom, so I'm just going to, for the most part, take note of them rather than trying to ding, because Zoom just does not do a really good job of switching back and forth very fast. But I will have a report at the end of the meeting of what I hear with regard to verbal crutches. David.
All right, thank you, Mark. Our next duty holder is going to be our vote counter, which is Karen Lee. So Karen Lee, can you please explain the role of vote counter?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, as a vote counter, you all will be asked at different times during the meeting to vote for instance, best speaker, and then best table topic, best evaluator, and best of the big three, which will be voting on either the general evaluator, Toastmaster, or the table topics master. And you will send your votes to me. So once you go down to the chat box and then you put my name in and send me your votes, and I'll keep track of the votes and give a report when called upon at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Karen. And our last duty holder is going to be posture monitor. As for Wes Edwards, please explain the role of posture monitor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and welcome guests. As the posture bell monitor, I'll be watching all meeting attendees to identify unusual or distracting posture, such as grasping the table, hands in pockets, forward or reverse, fig leaf, hair flipping, foot tapping, or other distracting gestures. When I notice these slips, I will ring the bell. Me and Mark already talked about this. I'll just make note of it and bring it up after at the end of the meeting. And note the posture. I will not ring the bell during prepared speeches unless I am requested to do so by the speaker, and I will keep track of the posture in writing. I will note an audience member's posture if it indicates that she is not paying attention to the speaker. I'll report the results at the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Wes. Right now, I'm going to go over some tips on ways to tell if somebody is lying to you. I mean, there's actually a lot to this. So, I mean, I'd like to go over it all, but we will not have the time for that. But I will preface it that if you are interested in this stuff, I did do some YouTube videos on this, and they're on my beard channel, which is BGG Beard Review. So if you are interested, all you just scroll through and find the ones where I talk about lying. So, you know, if you are interested, otherwise, I will just go over kind of a brief part of this for this Toastmaster meeting. But first, I'd like to talk about, you know, typical attitudes that are displayed by truthful people. And that would be calm, relaxed, cooperative, concerned, and sincere. But when it comes to an untruthful person, they'll be impatient, tense, defensive. They could be, you know, overly friendly, polite, or cooperative. Could be, you know, defeated, surly. But there are kind of common attitudes from both. And they could be nervous, angry, quiet, you know, just depending on the situation. And when it comes to more body specific type things, for example, like the trunk and shoulder, you know, the posture area, the truthful person is going to exhibit, you know, good posture. They're going to have a generally upper trunk with shoulders parallel. And they're going to appear comfortable and open and relaxed. Whereas an untruthful person is going to have excessive trunk leaning, you know, for example, backwards or forwards or to the sides. You know, they have gross body shifts, or they could just be frozen in place. And they could be scratching their body, shoulders be slumped or rounded. They'll use their hands to protect their abdominal area. And that's some other things when it comes to the hands and arms. The truthful, I mean, a lot of these going to be, you know, they're going to be comfortable. So, you know, they're going to be comfortable, coordinated, relaxed movements. Hands are going to be warm and dry. But when it comes to the untruthful person, they're going to have excessive tension. You know, they have arms crossed or held tight to their trunk, you know, to protect themselves. Hands could be damp or clammy. You know, it could be scratching, kind of like a nervous tick like type situation. When it comes to like the legs and feet, again, they're going to be comfortable, relaxed. You know, feet flat on the floor, you know, especially if they're sitting. You know, if they're sitting, like legs or ankles could be crossed. But when it comes to the untruthful person, they're going to have the use of their legs to provide a defensive barrier. You know, especially if they're sitting, they're going to have, you know, like stretched out in front of them to have like some, you know, it's kind of like a whole distance between you and them. They'll may shift from crossing legs, uncrossing. You could be tapping their foot, circling the foot, like sitting in a fleeing type position. And when it comes to like the head and neck, you know, they could have their head slightly tilted. They're gonna have, you know, sincere, genuine expressions, you know, nod lightly. But when it comes to the eye part, they're gonna have really good eye contact, at least, you know, 40, 60% of the time eye contact with you. But when it comes to untruthful, they may have their head back or forward. They have a phony, beaten, harried expression. They're going to nod from their waist instead of their head. And their eyes could be like cold, hostile, rapid eye movement. Could be like even bug-eyed. And of course, they're going to have poor or aggressive eye contact. All right, there's some few tips on how you see the session based on body language. And I'm gonna go over a few more after our prepared speaker here, which is John Vessels. I apologize for the dog there. And his evaluator tonight is gonna be Lee King. So can you explain the evaluation for John Vessels, please?
Yes, Don will be working on creating a communication plan. So the purpose of his speech is to practice delivering a communication plan. Specifically listen for a well-organized speech about the member's experience with some aspect of plan development. He or she may choose to share any part of the process, including the results of implementing the plan, if the plan was implemented. The speech should not be a report about the content of the develop a communication plan project. Its time is 5 to 7 minutes.
All right, thank you, Lee. So now let's welcome John Vessels with getting the message out. Getting the message out, John Vessels.
As a quick reminder, make sure that you have your timer pinned.
Well, let me start by saying we need a little build up here so you'll understand what's going on. I work in IT and I administer a system that does staffing of departments for a large hospital system. And my system gets put online, and then that's how the staff know who's working today and who's taking care of who and everything like that. Also, my system integrates with our payroll system. So how they get paid is based on what is in the schedule. So my system is very important, not only in providing scheduling, but also getting the people paid correctly. Now, a couple of years ago, we went to this centralized timekeeping model and took it away from all the managers and individual department leads having to do the payroll every 2 weeks. And so we went to a centralized staffing, and now each facility has anywhere from 2 to 5, 6 timekeepers that go in after the people are working and making sure they're all coded correctly so they get their PTO or their education time or their overtime or whatever they need to get done. Now, when we went to that centralized staffing model, the timekeepers decided that they now owned my system. And I say my system because as far as I'm concerned, it's my system, not yours. And they wanted to make some some process improvements so that it could be more efficient for them. Now, had to get on the conference calls with them. We had like a monthly conference call for a little bit. And they told me what they were interested in doing and standardizing a whole bunch of the tasks. By the task is something like 7A to 7P RN or PCT or PTO or whatever it may be. And was kind of fine and dandy, except they wanted to change everything to be just like simple tasks like charge or call or preceptor or working and stuff. And it's like, I had to explain to them that was ridiculous. It's like, we have a 24-hour facility. We have to know that this is a 7A, 7P shift or a 7P, 7A shift or an 8 to 5 shift or whatever it is, and who's working by their skills. So after beating them back about some of that and saying how much of this you can't accommodate, but these things I can. Now, this started just before COVID. And of course, I was pretty abject at the moment because we have over 900 cost centers, and that means me going in and touching 50 tasks in every single cost center they have in the place, which would be just a year of me going and making all these little silly changes. Now, I managed to push them off. I got my manager and director. It's like, okay, this, this, and this. And they go, okay. And well, we got COVID. We got so much going on with COVID and all the changes we had going there. I was able to get that pushed off. And it's been a little over a year and a half now. And now they're really kind of pushing to get this done because I have a director that she talked to everybody and thinks that this is the most wonderful thing. This coming out of the hospital that doesn't follow anybody else's rules. They think they have all the answers and they create all the rules and try to make everybody live by them. So anyway, after a bunch of that discussion, I managed to write some scripts so I can do this on the database and punch it out to every cost center all at once to streamline. It'll still take me a bit of doing because I have to run them individually. It's a long story. You won't even need to know that. But coming from that, I'm having to go through a lot of emails, discussion of this and telling them what we're going to do and what I'm not going to do. Now, the big thing is that you have to come along, and not only do I have this little timekeeper group, which we have like an email for all the timekeepers, so I can blitz it out to all of them at once when I go in to put this into the system. But it's also going to affect all the managers and directors and staffers who deal with the system scheduling on a daily basis. So I'm going to have to create a plan to get all that information out to them because I don't have just a blitz email that I can reach every department manager, every director, and let them know about it. Now, as soon as I start communicating this, which I'll have to do a little early, kind of give them a little heads up and not just drop the ball on them and say, okay, this is going to change because of the timekeepers. I'll be sure and put that in there, pass the buck. No, point the finger where it belongs. I'm sorry. But sure enough, once I put this out there, even to the timekeepers, they will start coming back and asking me questions. It's like we haven't been discussing this in conference calls for the past year, and now all of a sudden you don't know what's going on. And that's because y'all kept your mouth closed and didn't ever speak up against this and just took whatever that director said. After I make the announcement to all those people and all the managers and directors, they're all going to come back and have questions. And that means I'm going to have to hold some conference calls, some Teams meetings, just like this Zoom meeting, and have discussions and explain to them everything that is going to happen and how they can or have to deal with it. So all that being said, it is always a chore to get all this information out to everybody. Immediately I asked to have a big group and somebody will come along and say, I didn't get that information. So there will be a lot of repetitive calls and repetitive emails telling them every single day, or it'll probably take me a couple of weeks to actually get through all of the scripts and make sure everything's changed successfully without damaging anything. Because since this is part of time and labor, I'm required to keep it for lawsuits and everything for at least 8 years. We have to maintain that. So it's very difficult for me to change something without doing damage to the system and have a lawsuit come back at us later on. And all of a sudden I don't have the documentation because we made a change to the system that they thought would be better for them. So all in all, emails, conference calls. I mean, COVID in the old days, I would go have a big conference meeting at all the different facilities. COVID's ruled that out, which is kind of a plus. Now I'm going to sit on here and have a meeting with 150 people and just tell them what I got on my mind. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, John. So now I will call upon a towers report, which that is me, and John did qualify on time. Just right down here. All right. So congratulations, John. And now obviously we're not voting for, we only have one speaker, so we're not voting for best speaker. So, but if you do have comments for John, please, send him a direct message, just like we do, our notes during our in-person meetings, just go ahead and send a direct message to John if you have any remarks for him. Of course, he obviously will get a formal evaluation towards later in the meeting. So now I'm gonna go on a few more topics about signs of deception. Another thing when it comes to the head and neck, when it comes to the mouth, more specifically, is we're gonna have a genuine, sincere smile, relaxed jaw. But when it comes to the untruthful person, the lips are gonna be pursed. You could even kind of bite their lip, wet their lip, yawn, clear their throat, sigh, deep breaths, things like that. And when it comes to the nose, they might use it for a creative job, for example, picking at the nose, rubbing, itching, flared nostrils. When it comes to like the next part, the larynx, as the apple moves repeatedly, rashes could even appear at the front of the base of the neck. But when it comes to a verbal manifestation of behavior, the truthful, they're going to have direct, timely responses. They're going to speak understandably. Of course, when it comes to me, sometimes I don't speak understandably sometimes, but I am telling the truth. They'll be cooperative and not necessarily want to be your friend, but they'll be cooperative. But when it comes to the untruthful person, they're going to be vague, stammering responses, long pauses in speaking. They may even answer too quick or too short, or have a long or elaborate type answers. They can talk softly. They could have unsolicited or premature excuses or explanations. And of course, they may even rely on uncheckable sources to back up their story, or they'll focus on irrelevant points to establish their innocence. Also, when it comes to truthful person, they're going to answer promptly. They'll be able to recount their story repeatedly with only maybe minor variations. But a truthful person, they could be a delayed response, pausing before answering. They can repeat their question to delay some time there, respond with a question, or it could be just even non-responsive. So of course they could have like political answers, like at this point in time, or if I call correctly, or the best of my knowledge, things like that. And one thing you gotta also realize that when, especially in my former field, when we're questioning people about things, the truthful subject, their denials will get stronger with time, whereas untruthful people, their denials will get weaker with time. All right, so that's a few more thoughts on how to spot some deception. So we're going to move on into I do want to bring up one more thing after table topics. So table topic master, please come back to me. So we're going to move on to our table topic master, which is Rob Giles. So take away, Rob.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Greatly appreciate your theme and all that great information. Some of us have heard some of that stuff, years ago in some of your previous presentations. It's always good and refreshing if you've heard it before, but always great if you haven't and it's new to you, so you can kind of evaluate, and it can also make you start to think when somebody's telling you something, looking for all those clues. So it can keep us on a higher alert as far as that's concerned. Hopefully not too many people that we know are lying to us, but that is the theme tonight, right? Lie to me. And I'm not going to go through table topics saying lie to me, but if you incorporate a lie within your topic answer, I'm probably not going to know. And if I do know, if it's good, it's good. However, in table topics, as a reminder, you do have to speak at least 1 minute, and you cannot speak more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You have to have that time frame in order to qualify. You also need to use the word of the day, which is abject. So please keep that in mind to use that. It can be an abject lie. It can be an abject truth. just answer the question and make it entertaining, make it a good mini speech, and keep it in that time frame. As far as the theme is concerned, it made me think of a television show called To Tell the Truth, where you had 3 panelists, and I think they actually have a new version of it, but I knew it from back in the day. We had 3 panelists that were all claiming to be of this one occupation, and 2 of the people were lying and 1 person was telling the truth. And the 1 person who was the, I guess, guest or the star, maybe not the star, but the guest, who was trying to figure out which one was telling the truth, would ask all of them questions in order to try to get to the answers that made them think, that one's the one that's telling the truth. So I love that show. It was pretty good because some people were really good at lying and other people were not so good. And that leads me to a game that some people play. Sometimes they do it actually as a team exercise in companies, and sometimes just as a game amongst friends. But it is called 2 Truths and a Lie. And what I want to know is, have you played this game? Would you play this game? And if you had played it, what might be the lie that you include in it? And this one's going to Mark Schroeder.
I have to admit, it is not a game that I have ever played. So I'm not even sure what the rules are. Would I play it? Probably. Would I play it badly? I would probably play it very badly. I am not a very good liar. I am just too detectable, and I know it. And I can actually give a particular example, not of me, but there is a guy who used to be my boss who occasionally would just have to be an abject liar. He didn't have a choice. He was my boss. So you're going to ask him questions, and he's got information in some cases that he's not supposed to give out. It's information that we're going to find out about later, but it's information we're not supposed to know about yet. Well, he had a tell that was very noticeable once you figured it out. Most of the time when you would talk to this guy, he would look you in the eyes, he would answer your questions. And even if he said, I don't know the answer, he would look you in the eyes and he would tell you that. The moment he stops looking you in the eyes and still saying the same thing, that's when you knew that he was not telling you. He could not tell you, he could not look in your face. He could not look in your eyes and tell you a lie. But he would look away and say, I don't know anything about that. And you knew that he knew more information at that point. I suspect I would be in the same boat if I were to play this kind of a game. I would probably do a very bad job if I was supposed to be the liar. I suspect that I would have an equivalent tell. I don't know what it is. I am probably not very good at covering it up, whatever it is. I do not belong in any poker games or anything like that. But it is interesting. Some people do have a very visible or audible tell, and I suspect I would have one too, but I would still try to play the game. Rob.
Thank you very much, Mark. Great answer. I played the game once at a previous job, and it was great because it was at the beginning of the job. My team knew nothing about me. So that lie, that basically you tell 2 truths to them and then a lie, basically trying to make that lie sound like a truth. And then they have to pick which one is the lie. And so when I did my lie, I basically just extended my family from having 3 siblings to, I think, 7 or 8 siblings. And I put them all in order, and they could ask you questions about that. And they said, well, what are the age order? And if I didn't hesitate, I just went boom, 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 boom. And as if I've known these people all my life in my family. So anyway, great answer for me, especially for not playing the game. But it leads me to think, how well are people at being able to recognize lies, like Dagan was saying, and is it bad in a game? In a game, you're lying, right? But that's okay, right? It's a game. In general, lying, probably not such a good thing. What I would like to do is ask about white lies. Are white lies okay? This one is going to go to John Vessels. John.
Well, of course, a white lie by definition, how does it be a white lie? Is there black lies? Where did that come from? So my opinion is there are situations where to spare somebody's feelings, a white lie is okay. When they ask me, does my butt look good in this dress? It's probably just yes, regardless of whether it does or not. And it's a personal opinion. So just let it go. I don't try to go out of my way to hurt people's feelings. I know I can be a little short once in a while. And I do come from that generation and that group of people that used mean humor to laugh at each other. And it worked for us. I had a whole bunch of friends and we never let anybody get away with anything. But we were all really good friends. It didn't hurt anybody's feelings. And actually, when I was in a really foul mood, if they kept picking on me, they'd eventually get me laughing because you just can't hold on to it. So I don't think a white lie in the proper situation where it has no real effect on somebody's livelihood or their personal safety and you're just sparing their feelings, I think that's fine. Back to you.
Thank you very much, John. Yeah, it definitely depends on who you're with and what you're doing and how you, just the interaction and the relationships that you have with the people as to whether you can get away with some of that stuff without hurting their feelings. Definitely, I haven't had to ask anybody, does that make my butt look big? So I don't think I'll ever have to ask anybody that. Although I might want to at some point. I might have to say, do I have a butt? And at that point, they better lie. So basically, it's tougher, but maybe more applicable, I think, when it comes to people that are close to you. Those are the people that you really don't want to hurt, right? But sometimes you might have to do a white lie or a lie of some sort. I would like to ask, have you lied to a close friend or a loved one? And what was it about and why? And this one is going to go to Wes. Wes, can you tell us about a time when you lied to somebody and what was it about?
How did I know that you were going to call on me for this one? I knew I was going to get hit with something that was going to be super personal or something along those lines. You know, there's definitely been times when I've lied to people that are close to me just simply because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Maybe it's something like I've run into the situation with my mother a couple of times, you know, when it comes to specific things that I'm not really going to get into. But from what it is that I've learned is I think you can say the truth, but you can say it in a tactful way. And I actually think that goes back to a book that I was reading on negotiation, and it's called Never Split the Difference. So the idea behind Never Split the Difference was basically like if you're in a situation where you are in an abject situation, so to say, where you're not really wanting to lie to somebody, you can communicate the truth to somebody through asking them questions or saying something in the form of a question. You know, asking something in the form of a question communicates empathy. And once it is that you've kind of established that empathy, then you can start to get to the hard truths of telling somebody something with taking a little bit of the bite out of the truth. And that would be my answer. So back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
So thank you so much, Wes. Yeah, definitely some things are too personal. We want to keep them close to the vest because they're not the most comfortable, and perhaps their lies, perhaps us avoiding the lie. Some people might actually think, and some people do, that you may be lying by omission. You know, you're not including everything in the story, and you know, you may not be technically lying, but that might be what you're talking about, is kind of getting around some of the things that you don't actually want to say. Maybe not being tactful, but being tactical about what you say. I know that recognizing when somebody is doing that, you know, we've had some of that explanation, but what I would like to know is specifically about a person. Can you tell when somebody specific in your life is lying to you? So somebody that you have had in your life, and you're like, I know you're lying, kind of thing. You always do this. You have a tell, and this one is going to go to our Toastmaster. Tell us about it. Somebody that you just know when they do it, and they're like, oh, I'm caught. Dagan Newland.
Who's timing me?
I can
Please,
time.
if you're ready, go ahead. If not, give me a second. Ready to go.
All right, you're all yours.
All right, so somebody close to me, do I know they're lying? Because, you know, in my field, I'm always, you know, looking at other people, you know they're lying to me. But when it comes to somebody really close, I leave my job at home, really. Well, of course, I have their job field now, but, you know, back then, well, even now, I always left my job at home because I deal with that all day at work. I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff at home. So I like to be able to trust the people that are close to me and know that they're going to tell me the truth, or, you know, be correct with me. And, you know, and really, I kind of abject to that question. So, but anyway, yeah. So I want to keep it, you know, that kind of. I like to, you know, like I said, I just want to be able to say that somebody's going to be honest with me, that's close to me, and I don't want to try to tell if they're lying to me. And that's just me, because I want to know that they're being truthful. I don't want to deal with knowing that they're going to be lying to me, because if they are lying to me, I mean, eventually lies do come out, and eventually I'll know. But I don't want to have to constantly worry about that to know, you know, hey, are you lying to me or telling me the truth? You know, I just want to be able to trust the people that are closest to me. Back to you, Table Topic Master.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Definitely, lies are tough to keep track of if you keep them going for a while. Now, what's that phrase? Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Something along those lines, I think. So thank you very much for that answer. Sometimes I think about people if I tell them something that I think is true, because either I heard it somewhere or I read it somewhere, something like that, and they find out later that, no, that's not true. And then they come to me, you lied about that. Now, most of the time it's in a joking manner, but what I want to know is, has anybody, and I say anybody, I'm going to pick somebody, have you ever purchased something, you know, opened it up, tried to use it, and found that it was broken? You know, so it didn't do what it said it was going to do. Is that a lie? And have you ever had it happen to you? And how did you feel about it? This one is going to go to Karen Lee. Karen.
Well, Mr. Tabletop Master, Mr. Toastmaster, and fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, yes, I have had appliances. I will speak very specifically to coffee makers that did not do what they were supposed to do. The abject coffee makers in question were very expensive. Not just one very expensive coffee maker, but several very expensive coffee makers. These coffee makers cost in excess of $299. The coffee makers were the kind that were the grind and brew with the burr grinders. That did not make coffee like they were supposed to. The worst one, I will not even give you the brand name of, was given to me as a housewarming gift by my brother-in-law and my sister. And since it was purchased from a Bed Bath & Beyond and not the trademark place, when I tried to send it back to them, they had a problem with it. They also, the brand name would not, did not want to send the money back to my brother-in-law and my sister. I had to take that up with them and be very explicit about the fact that it wasn't working. Finally, there was restitution to their credit card number. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Karen. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's tough. It's tough to swallow that, and then, and no pun intended, it's obviously tough to swallow coffee grinds, but it's tough to purchase something and then for it to break, and then not to have that compassion, you know, when you go to return it and have some sort of recompense to that. So I can definitely understand that and feel that. No lie. So I'm going to go through. That's going to be it for table topics tonight. Actually, yeah, that's going to be it for table topics. I'm sorry, Tom. I meant to include you, but we're getting kind of late here. I apologize. So what I want to do is review all of the speakers, but first ask for a timers report. So if both Dagan and Mark can enlighten me on that.
Yes, everybody qualified on time, including me. Mark sent me a message, so.
Excellent. Woo-hoo. All right, and then this one goes to Mr. Mark Schroeder. Mark, did everybody use the word of the day, or who did not?
All right, so we had, how many speakers did we have?
Don't be abject about it.
How many speakers did we have?
We had 5, or yeah, we had 5. I can list them in order if you
Yeah,
want.
please do, because I'm missing one.
Okay, so the first one was Mark Schroeder.
Yep, then Wes.
Second was John Vessels,
Oh, I missed John.
and then Wes Edwards.
I missed writing down John. So I believe everybody used the word of the day with a possible exception.
Yeah.
For Dagan, I believe we got object, not abject.
Well, I did say abject, but then I said abject really quick, but I did not use it in the correct content.
Did not use it. Okay, you're right.
I tried to make a faux pas, whatever.
You're right. So at that point, I think everybody used it.
Yeah, as long as you weren't lying about it. Okay, so we have everybody qualifying on time and everybody using the word of the day. And I will again go through all the list of our contestants, and you can send a private chat to our vote counter, Karen Lee, as to which table topic speaker you think did the best job. First one was Mark Schroeder, talking about the game Two Truths and a Lie. The fact that he did not play it, but he gave us a good answer. Also, you had John Vessels talking about white lies. Are they okay? And he gave us his opinion and why. And talked about, having to give somebody, good news to prevent hurting them. We also had Wes, it's in a similar vein, talked about having to lie to somebody close to him. And, sometimes it's tough to lie to our parents. So he talked about his mother in that regard. Dagan talked about, having to, or finding out somebody who's close to you, I know how you lie, but Dagan, that's part of his work. So he tried to leave that, I believe he said leave it at home, but I think he meant leave it at work. And when he comes home, not have to deal with it. And then finally, we had Karen Lee talking about, getting a broken product, I mean, is that a lie? And what do you do at that point? For her, it was a couple of coffee makers that should have probably done more than just make coffee. So those are our contestants. Tom, you are welcome to vote for them as well. So pick one of them, send it again to a private chat to Karen Lee, our vote counter, and she will tally those votes. At this point, I will go ahead. I'm not gonna lie, it's coming up in just a few seconds. Go back to our Toastmaster, Mr. Dagan Newland, for a little bit more information regarding lying to me. Dagan Newland.
All right, thank you, Rob. Well done there on table topics. So there's one more thing I want to discuss, and that's about the eyes. And this, I mean, I've heard a lot of controversy about this one. A lot of people say it doesn't really work that good. But, based on my experiences, when it comes to maybe like single type questions that we ask, it does kind of work. But when somebody goes on and on about something, it does get a little more distorted. And that is basically when somebody, when you talk to somebody, you see their eyes shift, either left or right, up and down to the left, things like that. Well, the meaning that, that those mean is that when somebody looks up and left, they are visually recalling, which means they're trying to recall something that happens, obviously. And when they look straight across and to the left, they're trying to recall something they heard. And when they look down and to the left, it's their internal dialogue. So they're kind of reaching down inside themselves. So something they, basically, still trying to recall something. But when they go up and right, they're visually creating. So they're trying to create something, basically giving a story. And when they look straight across and to the right, they're creating something they heard. And down and right is their internal feelings. So we ask like a quick question, like a one type, one answer, one word type question, like say, hey, or like say, hey, what do you have for dinner this morning? I mean, I'm sorry, what do you have for breakfast this morning? So if they're going to try to recall something that, they really try to think about what they have for breakfast, they're going to go up and to the left. Where though, if they're going to try to, tell you a story about what they have for breakfast, they're going to go, up and to the right. But when they're trying to elaborate on a whole story, you might see their eyes shift left, you might see their eyes shift right, because different parts of the story, they probably actually recalling something that actually happened, but they're also trying to make up something as well during the whole story. So it gets a little more convoluted the longer the story gets. And so when it comes to a storyline, I think that's a little more ineffective. But when it comes to like short answers, I think it is more effective. So that's just one thing I want to say really quick in my last little bit. And again, if you want to see some of my videos about that more detail, just send me an email or message and I'll point you in the right direction. So, and with that, that'll conclude my section as Toastmaster, and we'll move on to the general evaluator, Karen Lee. So take it over, Karen Lee.
Thank you very much, Dagan. This begins the evaluation portion of our meeting. And this portion of the meeting, I get a chance to introduce the evaluator and have the evaluator evaluate the speaker. And the first thing I'll do is have Lee evaluate our speaker, John Vessels. Go ahead, Lee.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and especially John. It was a great opportunity to evaluate your speech this evening. I'm going to point out a few things that you did well, give you a few suggestions, and then recap on a positive note. Your speech tonight was very informative. Definitely had a really good idea of what you do for work, and how you've been spending your time during COVID, which I think is very interesting and I think informative for all of us. I think we all have questions about what we do during the day and how people are still functioning during this hard time. So you did a very good job of describing your work. Your speech was well prepared, and you kept us engaged and interested in your speech consistently. throughout. One thing that, a couple of things that I would suggest. One would be to highlight a little bit more on where you're going within your speech. I tended to get a little bit lost on how you were tying this to your objectives, which also goes to the second area, which is you were to describe to us a communication plan. And I was a little unclear on what the plan was. I would suggest that you recap that a little bit more and then integrate that into your speech a little more effectively. Tell us specifically, maybe tell us about one or two specific meetings and what type of plan you were using to interface with these different managers, and ultimately, were you successful? Was your plan successful? Did you manage to get information to them? Overall, though, I thought that your speech was very detailed, very informative, and I also enjoyed your humor that you used throughout the speech. So keep up the good work. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
At this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and give my evaluation of the meeting. And that'll give the duty holders a little bit of time to gather notes on me so that they, when it's their turn to give their reports, they can talk about what I did or didn't do. Oh, that's right. I need to ask Dagan, did Lee qualify on time?
Yes, Lee did qualify on time.
Okay. All right. See, I wanted to say that since we are a small group tonight, that I thought that everyone pulled together to work as a team to have the meeting in order and shuffle the roles in great style. And I do think that we did start a few minutes later because there were folks that were not able to come to the meeting on time and fulfill their duties just because of work and such. And I think one person had not confirmed. I do think that it is a little more frustrating because of the situation with being online again. And it's a little, I think as far as I'm concerned, it's a little disappointing that we're not in person. And I think a lot of us are busy doing other things. And so it came out tonight too that maybe not quite as much. I'm not quite as enthusiastic about being back online again. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but we did, there was a lot of, Dagan, you did quite a bit to prepare for the meeting tonight. And I do want to say, Dagan, that you were in your zone as far as talking about lying. And your delivery was so smooth, and listening to you, you didn't have the normal pauses that I normally hear with you. And it was very, very evident in listening to you tonight. And you're very prepared, very organized, and it very much so. And everyone else, as far as picking up duties last minute, a lot of folks are here doing doubles and triple duties. So that was very, very admirable in helping it to make sure that the meeting ran smoothly. I won't say everybody's names, but you know who you are. Let's see. So, and Lee, you also gave John a very balanced evaluation. You're a very good evaluator, and gave him some things to work on and also you gave him gave him a lot of areas that you felt that he did well. So you gave him a very balanced evaluation. I'm going to go ahead and ask for the duty holders to give their reports at this time. Let's see. grammarian. Mark, you want to go ahead and give your report as grammarian and also as all counter at this time?
Sure, and if you will indulge me, I'm going to do the counter first.
That's fine.
Let's see, counter. Let me start off with mostly in alphabetic, no, excuse me, in chronological order. Wes, I only caught 2 uhs that you used during your, I suspect that was either duty holder or, I think it was duty holders. No, must have been table topics. Anyway, Dagan, you maxed out the counter at 15. You maxed out the counter. I stopped counting at 20. And sadly, I think we now have a pandemic of because that has infected some other people. We'll get to that in a moment. John only caught 1 so very good on yours. Rob, 9, which is uncharacteristic for you. 1 that's all I noticed there. Let's see. Oops, Wes, I got you for 1 more. Come to think about it, I wrote you down twice. I noticed another and a kind of. In the particular, the context was kind of established, I believe was what you said. Well, you either established or you didn't. You didn't kind of establish. So most of the time when the kind of is there, unless you're talking about a particular kind of something, as opposed to sort of or kind of, you can usually just leave sort of or kind of out. And I recommend you do so. Karen, caught you with 5 uhs tonight. So that concludes the counters report. Let's go to grammarian report. Word of the day. We had a really good use of the word of the day abject during table topics. Everybody used it. John, let's see. Yeah, John, you used it once, and Rob, you used it 3 times all total outside of table topics. So very good use of the word of the day today. Let's talk about other things that I noticed. Dagan, 1 grammatical issue. You didn't say it didn't work. You said it didn't work that good. Well, it didn't work that well, but I caught work that good. And you also said it when it comes to like. So that was an instance of using the word like as a filler word. So watch for that. John, a lot of good usage tonight. I noticed integrate. I noticed beating them back, punch it out. I noticed streamline, timekeepers, and then of course the ubiquitous word y'all. Now, I don't know how everybody else feels about y'all. There's a lot of controversy about the word y'all. And so just to share real quick, at least one says that y'all reflects 2 or 3 people. If it's more than 3, it's all y'all. So I don't know whether you actually were referring to 2 or 3 or whether you're referring to more of that, but make sure if it's more than that, it's all y'all. The controversy, of course, is y'all for some people is the singular and all y'all is the plural for 2 or more. So just keep those 2 in mind when you're trying to use that word. All right, so let's see, Rob. Close to the vest, I like that. I like tactical. Tough to swallow. Having to do with coffee grinds. That was a nice one to put in there. And recompense. We don't often hear the word recompense. Let's see, Wes. The only thing I noticed, I mentioned it was the kind of established. Yeah, it's somewhere between a filler word and a not the best usage. Karen, I heard the phrase grind and brew. I think that's the name of a new gentleman's club down on Cedar Springs. God, do I wish that we could have sound from everybody. Oh, well, it is what it is. And I also noticed the word restitution. So those were the words that I noticed. Also, Lee, you restarted a sentence. You started with, let's see, 1 thing, and then you a couple of things. So you went from 1 thing to a couple of things very quickly, starting off a sentence. So watch for those types of issues. That concludes my report as grammarian tonight. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. Okay. Well, grind and brew has to do with a coffee maker. I never knew anything about the club. Okay, onward. Anyway, let's see, who's next? How about posture monitor, Wes? Want to go ahead and give your report, please?
Yeah, I didn't notice anything that was distracting by any of the speakers. Everybody seemed to be, moving their hands in a general way that was not distracting. I don't really think there's much you can do that is distracting when you're doing your Zoom speeches. So everybody was good. Yeah, you could do that, Mark.
Thank you. Let's see. Don't think I missed anyone. I did not, as far as my oops was that I didn't explain the purpose of the evaluations to the group before we got started. And let's see, I think that is everybody for the duty holders. And then also we need to ask for a vote for the big three. That would be either the Toastmaster, Dagan Newland. That would be Rob Giles for a table topics master, or myself as general evaluator. So go ahead and tell me who you think would be you would vote for, and send those to me, Karen Lee, in the chat box for the big three. Thank you. And who's our presiding officer?
Marion.
Haley.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. We'll be fairly quick. We, as you all know, we do have contest coming up in a couple of weeks. Please be on the lookout for emails regarding that. It will be virtual. If you want to compete or help, please let us know. We'll be recruiting you. It's actually in just 2 weeks. It's going to be Thursday, the 26th. And just remember that the only eligibility requirement is that you're an active member, that you're a dues paid member as of the date of the contest. So I believe pretty much everyone here except for are already paid up. So Tom, if you wanted to compete in either Tall Tales or Humorous, just join us before, I would say by next week, and then that would be good. Other than that, the only other things, we kind of met briefly, well, we did meet briefly after last week's meeting with mostly the officers. Dagan was unable to attend, but we did have Justin join us in his place. The one thing, we have 2 people here that we did not have at the meeting last week. And so the question that we've been informally asking, and we haven't been ready to vote on it or anything like that, but Ozona does have some patio space that they could give us. We would have to share it with other people. Rob did see that they did have a TV, so it looks like it would probably be possible to do hybrid. So Tom or Dagan, would either of y'all at some point be interested in doing a meeting outdoors at Ozona if the opportunity presented itself? Yes. Okay. All right. And Dagan?
I think it'd be a little warm right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It would be weather pending. Okay.
Yeah, we're even wondering like September, October timeframe when it starts getting better.
Yeah, definitely not right now. It would not be in the immediate future, and then we would have to reevaluate the overall COVID risk and that.
My one question, I'm sorry to interrupt, Lee.
Yeah.
How about the noise? Like, how loud is the wind outside? Could we actually hear each other?
The place that we were at last time, you actually could. It was blocked by the building and the cuts and bushes and stuff. So it's not too bad. It's on the other side of the building. It's not where the
Think the
large
north
patio
side.
is.
Yeah, think the north side. As you walk in the front door, the regular front door, you would walk straight across to the north side, and there's a door to a little patio area out there. They've got some tables out there and some chairs. It's not a large area, but when Rob was out there, he did say they had 6 guests out there. So it's also going to be a function of how many people are out there that day.
Correct. They won't reserve that whole area for us. So we will have other guests,
But if we're doing stuff, we may implicitly chase people away. You never know.
and that's true too. Yeah. But again, that's not anything in the near future at this time. Definitely weather pending and other issues. The other thing that we discussed is, of course, dues are coming up due, but we will be waiting. We will be evaluating. So if you're already a paid member, just hold on to your dues. We will meet again as officers on the 29th, Sunday, the 29th, and discuss a little bit further because, of course, our dues go for 6 months, and decide how we want to go about that. We did lower dues over the past year because everything was on Zoom. We didn't have to pay the Ozona rent. Obviously, it's a little early to tell right now. We're hoping that we'll get more information and then we can make a decision. And we'll let y'all know what we decide. I do know that unfortunately the COVID numbers have gone up 400% in just 1 week. And so my guess is we're going to be hybrid for a while. And so we'll just kind of play that by ear. Other than that, I think we are ready for our vote counter. Karen, will you please share the votes with us?
Lee and fellow Toastmasters. Our best speaker was John Vessels. He spoke and was not contested. Best evaluator was Lee. He was our only evaluator and was not contested also. In our contested races, under table topics, our best table topic is Mark Schroeder. And also our best of the big 3 was Dagan Newland. Congratulations. Back to you, Lee.
All right, and with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, everyone. We will stop the recording here in just a moment, but we will meet everybody again in about 30 minutes over at the Grind and Brew. Stopping the meeting in 3, 2,